Welcome to another episode of the Advice First podcast. This is your host, Robert Clark. Today I am joined with two incredible guests. One I'm introducing as our co-host today, and that is none other than Mr. Jerry Citarella with Prosperitas Financial. Jerry, how are you?
I'm good. Where's the applause? There's no button you push for a big applause?
Oh, there we go.
There you go. That was it.
Your guest helped us out. I have a bunch of colors on this platform here. I'm not even going to take a stab at what these colors or the sounds that it'll make, so we're limited to our round of applause here.
We'll stay away. Okay, good.
I hope that serves you well.
I feel good.
Good. Jerry, you brought in a pretty incredible guest today who I'm very excited to pick the brain of.
This is going to be a good 30 to 50 minutes for sure.
Absolutely. Can you, I want to make sure that we give her all the credit that she deserves.
Okay.
And I know, you were very excited to have her on. In just the brief conversation that we had off air, I can see exactly why you were excited to bring her on today's Advice First episode. Can you please introduce our guest?
Yes, I will give her name first, and then I'll give the introduction. Bri King.
Welcome to the Advice First podcast.
I met Bri at a gym, and I was always impressed with Bri because Bri was quiet and off on her own and never looking for much attention. Correct me if I'm wrong. This is what I noticed. But always working hard and punching bags and lifting weights and just kind of doing her thing. And then I found out that you were in real estate, and okay, so she's a realtor. Then I found out she was a top realtor and went, oh, okay, well, she doesn't act like a top realtor. Running around telling everybody I'm a top realtor. And I was just always kind of impressed with the way, Bri, that you just kind of did your thing and just worked and went forward. Then I found out you had 4 kids, and then there was all this other stuff. And so I've always kind of watched you work and how you did things and just move and conquer and the consistency. My wife works out every day. She does her thing. I'm so impressed with her consistency, and you just kind of have the same thing where you're not running around telling everybody, look how great I am because I do this. You're just doing it, and it's a great quality to have. So Bri is the number 3 realtor in town out of about 16,000 licensed realtors in Santa Clarita, which means she's extremely successful. And in conversations we've had, I've realized Bri's not number 3 because she's trying to sell houses. Bri is number 3 because she's trying to help people. Mm-hmm. And she just does the job for the good of the people, and also does great marketing and some other stuff we'll talk about. So with all that said, I can go on, but Bri, welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here with both of you.
Yeah, well, lots to talk about. But I want to just mention first, so we don't forget it, Bri and I are going to be doing some events early next year. So if you're watching or listening, just look out for those. There's a lot going on, and we've realized that there's some things that I think we can do together to help the clients we both serve and help people that we don't serve already. So we're excited about that. So early next year, just know we're going to be live somewhere. More to come.
I'm excited about it.
I love that. Bri, welcome. Very excited to have you here. Tell me, when did you get, clearly you've created an empire on your real estate projects. Being a real estate agent is just a fraction of what you do, but you do it extremely well. When did this mission start to get affiliated with real estate and help people buy and sell homes?
Thank you, first of all. I have actually been in the real estate industry for 25 years, coming up in January. So I got my license as soon as I was old enough, when I was 18. Became a notary public, and then just within the last year, I always say with our stats, I want a little asterisk like Barry Bonds, because we just had a baby this year on top of opening a new brokerage, brick and mortar, right on Town Center Drive. So my husband and I are also business partners. So he owns Prime Construction, I own Prime Real Estate, and so now we're actually giving some of our homeowners options. So getting into, not to give away the whole moral of the story this afternoon, but Jerry and I are connected over what we're building and our vision with this, because we're seeing a very large wealth transfer upon us, and I'm getting a lot of phone calls of, folks saying like, Bri, I inherited this house from my brother or from my parents, and it's really in disrepair. They weren't taking care of it the last 20, 30 years. What do we do? And they're just completely overwhelmed. And so that being said, we're giving our clients options now to where we say, look, we'll buy it at this price, no commission, no fees, just literally tell us the day you want to close and walk away. No inspections, no drama. Or number two, let's come in, we'll clean it, stage it, do what we do, get you top dollar. Or option three, you guys, like, you tell me if we need a new, kitchen or bathroom or whatnot, and then my husband can make that happen for you. And then we, hopefully put in 10,000 to get 50,000 out, not 2,000 to get 3,000. So, yeah, so it's pretty cool.
That's an incredible model.
Yeah, and just because it has to be mentioned, I said Bri had 4 kids. She just mentioned 5 now.
5 boys, so
5
that
boys.
counts for 10 children.
5 boys,
in my
5 boys.
personal
Yeah,
opinion.
a lot of food, a lot of mouths, a lot of action. So, not only raising 5 children, one of them a newborn, also doing all this in real estate. So I think the model that you put together is amazing, and it's great to give people those options. And I know a lot of people, sometimes when they have a house that's not in the best shape, they put it up on the market and they just get a bunch of lowball offers from investors. And that's fine. Everybody has their purpose in life and in the transaction. But I know in talking to you, you really want to be fair with them. And you're real upfront saying, we're doing this to try to make money.
100%.
But we're not doing it to try to take advantage of you. And you give them what I would consider a very, very fair offer for the home that takes all the risk out of it for them, and they don't have to deal with a bunch of people offering $150,000 under. And it's really fair, and it's nice, and it's great to have options.
It is, and what I love is just seeing the relief on people's faces when they're like, "You mean I don't have to hide the dog for the open house and go run to the park every couple hours during showings?" And also, these aren't just flips that we're doing. Like, I'm calling them beautification projects because my husband's quality of service and his level of craftsmanship and what he does, he's been a GC for over 24 years as well. Started as a plumber and then went into general construction. So the pride of ownership that we've fixed these homes up like we're going to live in them ourselves. So then buyers see the value in that as well, because a lot of people, despite the interest rates and the rising prices in real estate, can't afford to do upgrades on top of getting their foot in the door. So it's kind of allowing us to provide a unique experience without doing brand new construction where they're having to do landscaping in the backyard and builder upgrades and waiting long, periods before they can close.
Right.
Well, not to mention right now, unfortunately, the cost of items is up dramatically, and a lot of people's income and personal savings. It's just not the best time for a lot of people to say, yeah, I have $60,000 that I can put into something.
Absolutely. And then on top of it, living in a construction zone, is not fun. So
nobody wants that.
Yeah.
So you gave me an interesting statistic the first time we met and started talking about this, the wealth transfer. And
Yes.
I didn't know this. How many, okay, I don't remember the details. How many homes are owned by people above a certain age? What was that number?
So here's the two fun facts that
Listen
I
to
love
this.
right now.
Pay attention.
And I checked it on Google, so it's all legit. 42% of the U.S. homes are owned free and clear. 42%. So that is a huge number. I was shocked at the number, which goes to show you that not everyone is affected by the interest rates. So there is definitely movement. There's opportunity in every market, and we're definitely staying busy. But the interesting thing that I'm seeing also, the next statistic that I love is 86% of homes across the U.S. are owned by people ages 70 to 74 years old.
Wow.
86%. So when I was hearing over the last decade, the largest wealth transfer in history is coming upon us. You don't have any idea what you're going to see. And I'm sitting there and I couldn't wrap my head around what that meant for real estate necessarily. But now it's like right in my face and it's happening already. Where it's like, everybody's saying, oh, these, baby boomers like my dad don't want to move out of their big houses because they have it paid off or they, and that's still the case. But it's also becoming where, that 3,600 square foot pool home isn't suiting them anymore. And so they're needing to get into maybe assisted living, or they are downsizing and moving in with the kids. So that's the kind of thing that I love just helping with, because it's incredibly, as Jerry and I, really got on a roll talking about, is how overwhelming it is for the kids, and especially that, sandwich generation, like we talked about, where they're dealing with kids in college and then they've got elderly parents that can't live alone. There's just so many balls in the air to juggle. So
Yeah, they're holding both hands.
Right.
The other piece of that is if they have their house paid off or close to paid off and they're 70 or 80, they've been in that house for 30, 25, 40. This is a big move.
it is huge.
And it's emotional. And I just had a client that moved, And she said, thank God I'm old. I never have to do this again, because she had 35 years worth of stuff. So it's not just you and I, hey, we buy a house, buy another house, whatever, pack up for a few years and go again. These are big emotional, physical moves that really take a lot. And parents are older, the children are typically involved with it in some way. And so it's great to really kind of focus on it and figure out what's the best way we can get people through this transitionary time. And I think it's going to be huge.
That's what like I said, I love to provide solutions to problems. And when I literally 3 nights ago had the most lovely family. It was 3 generations of women who were all sitting around the table because Grandpa had passed away, and they called me over a year ago and said, Bri, if you find a house down the street from my mom in this community, a single story, we want it. Sure enough, I kid you not, I get a phone call. We've already moved out of state. We're done with this house. I said, here's your options. You guys talk it over as a family. Call me whenever you want and I'll jump. Sure enough, that exact floor plan came up. They came in as a group. We talked numbers. She's going to buy it, pick out all of her finishes, whatever kind of floor she wants. It's like literally made to order. And it's done. No drama, no contingent offers. Like, it's all just solution.
Wow.
Clean and easy.
Yeah.
That's the way to do it. I mean, speaking to your point of moving out after 20, 30 years, we helped my mom sell our family home. The things that she held on to, I'm like, why?
Yeah.
It was
100%.
the weirdest things. I won't even tell you some of the stuff she held. I was just like, really? Yeah. And so going through that attic, it's a large process. It's a large undertaking. The whole family's involved. But it's a tough decision.
It is.
It is tough. But one thing, like my dad, when he finally downsized, he said, I'm sorry I waited. Like, this is just so nice. I'm in a small, manageable place with no maintenance. I have no backyard, no pool guy, no drama. I just enjoy my life and visit my grandkids at my leisure, and it's just a load of
that's the thing.
off the shoulders.
Everybody knows they'll be better off once they do it.
Right.
It's like my clients that are taking care of their parents that have Alzheimer's. Everybody knows they would be better in some sort of facility that's designed to do it. It's just so hard to make that transition. So whatever steps you can simplify, just help the process to get them to that place that's going to be better. So the other piece of this that really makes it kind of compounded is women live longer than men. There's all kinds of jokes about that, but it is a fact. And in that era, a lot of times the men handled most of the stuff. It's just a different time. You know, now all of our wives tell us what we're doing each day and how to handle things. But back then it was the men that kind of handled things. So what I see a lot, and you probably do as well, is it's a widow left behind with this house that's too big. And they get scared because they've never sold a house or bought a house or done anything. And also one thing we were talking about is a lot of these people maybe have second homes or third homes as investment properties. Husband handled it, he's gone, or maybe they both handled it and they're just older. And now they have this 4-unit apartment building they're trying to manage at 80 years old. And how do they get out of that? So I think there's going to be a lot of decisions and a lot of transitions that need to be made in that area as well.
And that's why we're excited, Jerry, because you had mentioned, and I'll let you roll out that specific vehicle, but you know, that's the next question is, so when you are inheriting property, I'm getting a lot of calls where it's like, we have this 8-unit apartment building that's in an awesome location in LA, but it's in LA and I don't want to deal with it. I'm semi-retired and I don't, you know, or I'm a doctor. I do not have time to go deal with my parents', you know, apartment building that they had a personal handshake relationship with each of the tenants and don't have any leases in place. They're just like, if you can find somebody to take this, please do. And so what I love doing is collecting people, as I like to call it, collecting contacts of really lovely people that I'm like, you know what, this investor would be perfect for that because he's going to give them a fair value and we don't have to disturb the tenants and he's just going to take it, not hassle them and play games after the fact. And then the best part is being able to refer them to Jerry and say, hey, what should they do with this inheritance to avoid taxes and to make it last them as long as possible and maybe roll it into a different vehicle that's not something that they're personally managing.
Yeah, and that's a lot of what we're going to be doing next year is kind of talking about those types of strategies on whether you can get rid of it before you pass because, as you know, a lot of people think I'm stuck in this property because if I sell it, I have to pay tax. There's a 1031 exchange, which you can do, but then you have to put it into another property. So we have some options in our world that are real estate based, and we'll discuss those. And then a lot of people don't know that if you inherit something real estate wise, you don't pay any taxes if you sell it immediately. It's as if you bought it on the day of death. So there's a lot of things to take into consideration. There's estate taxes and probate taxes, and there's just a whole bunch surrounding this. So Bri and I got together and said, wow, this is going to be a big deal with a lot of transition and a lot of questions. Let's see if we can put some good information together and become resources.
Yeah, that's incredible. I mean, the step up in cost basis is huge, and I don't feel like most people are aware of that. Jerry, does that also apply if someone were to lose their spouse? Is there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, wait. What do you mean if they lose? I mean,
So if a married couple owns a home jointly, and one of the spouses passes away, does the widower receive a step up in basis at that time?
well, when they sell, no. Yes and no. It locks in at that time. So
Okay.
if they had an exemption, because you can have a $250,000 in profit for each spouse, so there's an exemption at that point. So if you didn't use all of it and there was only some growth, and you go past that, it's whatever you had at the time of that death. So the answer is kind of yes and no. It's a little bit more specific.
I put you on the spot.
Yeah.
I have a lot of life insurance. I just want to make sure, like,
Gotcha.
if my wife knows she gets a step up in cost basis too,
You're out.
I'm out of here. You're not going to see me tomorrow.
Yeah. And I always like to make sure I'm clear on the question so I could be precise in the answer.
Love that.
And on that note, too, as far as capital gains are concerned, a common misconception, and I really was under that impression for a lot of my younger years because it didn't apply to me for a while, but when you have capital gains tax, your primary residence as a married couple, you're obviously exempt up to $500,000 in gain, but that's based on your basis, not on your profit. So it doesn't matter if you own the house free and clear, or if you owe $900,000 on it and you're only making 50, or you're selling it for less than the 500K. That basically, like, let's say you sell the house for $1 million, it's what you sold it for minus what you bought it for, minus all your closing costs when you bought it, all your closing costs when you sold it, and any upgrades that you've done to the property over the years as well. So that $500,000 can get shrunk down pretty neatly to where you can roll that into something else, or just take the cash altogether and do something totally different.
As long as people recorded all of those items that count. A lot of people do upgrades in their house and just do it and throw the receipts away and
Right.
never record those, and they just go to waste. So
Right.
you really have to track everything.
Yeah, and Bri, to your point, the one thing that I think about there is to qualify for that $500,000 allowance, someone has to be still living in that residence as a primary residence for a certain number of years. So I would think there may be some individuals receiving they're expecting to receive their parents' property, or the parents moving out into a nursing home. But they're not selling the property. Maybe they're holding on to it. And now, depending on how long the parent's no longer living in there, I'm sure that affects some of those qualifications on the allowance.
Yeah, if they're in the nursing home too long and then try to sell it and it's no longer owner occupied, which
Yes.
if they don't rent it, then maybe it still is. There's always a little bit more to
caveats.
it. There's caveats, but you're right. You have to pay attention to those things. Another one that I see a lot, and you probably see this, is older people will say, "I'm just going to give my property to my kids, put it in their name." No, because then the line is drawn at that point, and their possession starts then, and their taxable basis starts then. And I always tell, don't do that. Put it in a trust, because their concern is typically, I want to make sure they get it.
Right.
Well, set up a living trust. They're going to get it, and then it's as if they bought it on the date of your death. You give your property to your kid, you live another 9 years, and you have $1 million in growth in your property. They lose all of that, or most of it.
Yeah.
And that's the cost of, a lot of people don't want to pay the money up front to, establish a will and a trust, but it is so important. I mean, if you need to chip in as a family to help out your parents to get it done, I have lost several family members, and to watch the difference between being able to grieve for someone properly versus trying to argue with banks that you're supposed to be, that you should have access to that money to pay for funeral costs when their name is on it and they've frozen all the assets now that they've found out that that they're no longer with us. So to have the proper documentation, just to walk in and go, here you go, this is what she wanted, and on to the next, and especially when real estate is involved, because to have a home locked up in probate, we're talking time and so much money, and not getting to choose who your realtor representation is necessarily.
Right.
Paying 6% plus just on the commission side, because it's just established by the court. And then you're paying, probate fees and costs, which are upwards of 6%. So we're talking about eating up, equity is not guaranteed. That's what I've been trying to explain to everybody. We're in a good real estate market, but I mean, if anything adjusts, or if, something tends to happen, or parents pull out, a reverse mortgage or an equity line or whatnot, and now all of a sudden you're paying all these fees after the fact, your inheritance you're fighting for might not be worth very much, which is just a shame, because that's not what your parents wanted.
Yeah. Well, and as soon as there's fighting, then that delays the probate. And if they still had a loan on the property, the family or the the estate has to pay the loan. So when it finally gets released, then everybody just wants to sell it as quickly as possible. It becomes a fire sale.
Yeah.
So it gets discounted. I have a lot of clients that I say, make your kids pay for your trust. They're the ones benefiting from it.
Why not? Absolutely.
I meet my clients and I say, oh, it's $2,200 or $1,800, whatever the number is, $5,000. Who cares? Get your 4 kids to split it.
Absolutely. I had a lady come from one of my listings. The next door neighbor came out of the woodwork and said, "Oh no, she promised me the house." Guess what?
Wow.
Now we're tied up.
Yeah.
When they thought, no, there's no heirs, nobody's going to come out, and sure enough, yeah, she told me over coffee one day, because you guys don't visit anymore, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what a mess.
We'll do another podcast of just the horror stories that I've seen over my 30-something years of doing this.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
We had an estate planner as a guest last year, and that was exactly one of the things he mentioned was if you live in California, you need a trust. Like, you need a trust. And I remember asking, because for so many years I was just told, make sure you have a will. Well, as he explained it, the will is only helpful through probate. So you're still going through probate. It
makes the probate court's job easier, but they still charge you the same.
So in order to
It's an instruction manual. It's not a vehicle.
Yep, exactly right.
100%.
Bri, I am dying to know, out of the 3 options that you're giving clients, what is the most common one that they're landing on?
I am seeing, believe it or not, so the last 8 listing appointments I've gone on, and it's funny because my husband's like, okay, no more options. And I'm like, no, you're fine. We've got guys. We can do this. And they are lining up kind of beautifully right now. But, because the fun thing is everyone has a different time frame. We had one gentleman that, had some family issues come up, so they needed to push us out 30 days for closing. No problem. There's no extra, we helped out pay his mortgage payment so that there were no extenuating circumstances for them. So like I said, we're genuinely here to help, and I am seeing people, I'd say out of the last 8, 4 of them chose to just take it. They're like, I just want to walk and leave all my stuff behind. We take care of, trashing it and all that stuff. And literally it's just very minimal communication. Just, Bri, I'll call you when I'm ready. And so we've just picked up keys this afternoon to a property that'll be done in 3.5 weeks.
Wow.
So then the other option, I'm not seeing sellers putting a whole lot of money into the major remodels right now, but I can tell you Santa Clarita real estate, like we mentioned before, homes that are in need of upgrading really need to be priced accordingly. And the average remodel on these homes, we're talking 6 figures at cost because of, by the time you're doing a bathroom, or excuse me, both bathrooms and the kitchen, and then you're getting into lighting and electrical and then deferred maintenance on that deck is moldy and needs to go. It's unforeseen
pool
circumstances.
Equipment,
Yes, for sure.
So I have a question.
Yes.
This is a tough one. This is the crystal ball question, since we're here.
Why not?
We have the number 3 realtor in town. Everybody is wondering where real estate is going. And, real estate should have crashed based on interest rates.
I've been waiting since 2017.
But because rates went crazy so fast, nobody had time to really. And now, who the heck's going to downsize into a house half the size and have a payment twice the size?
That me included, yeah.
Right. So there's no inventory, obviously. So I know we can kind of go back and forth, and it's a lot of guessing. What do you think? What do you see? What's your best estimate? I don't want to call it a guess.
Give
What's
me
your
a
best
time
estimate?
frame, and I'll tell you my humble opinion.
Well, I've got some people that want to sell by next weekend.
Okay, well, let's go. Let's go. What do you got?
I would say realistically, probably end of next year, and then probably within 2 years after that. So realistic timeframes, a year from now or so, and then maybe a year after that.
That is a very technologically advanced crystal ball, I'm just saying.
Yeah, got it.
So,
not putting you on the spot, just throw it in.
No, I can take it. I basically give my advice quarterly, and I judge things based on what my cell phone's doing. It's not so much, I know I threw a lot of statistics out there, but it's not so much the stats always, because they are in arrears of what the market was doing, 30 to 60 days ago. Those are the houses that closed escrow, so that's what was happening 2 months ago, and we're already in a totally different space now, especially with as quickly as the interest rates tend to be fluctuating. For example, we went from 8% last week to 7% this week. That's a $500 a month change in mortgage payment.
Wow.
That makes or breaks a buyer being in the market or being on hold. So that being said, while many people are not completely hinged on the interest rates and affected, at the same time, that is going to see, we're going to see where the direction goes. So summer of 2017, I sat there when we were right around 4.5%, and I went, okay, if we go to 5, we're going to cool off really fast. And my phone stopped ringing on the buyer's side. And then the sellers start calling, and I'm going, okay, we're going to start to see our inventory pick up. So the variables, to project what's going to happen over the next 2 years, we are coming into an election year. No one wants to make it look like we don't have a strong real estate or economy in general. So the rumor on the street is that they're going to lower rates first quarter of next year. The minute that happens, prices will jump up overnight, in my opinion, just because there is so much demand. That housing shortage that we've been talking about, I am hoping gets slightly corrected as some of these older folks are transitioning and maybe moving out of these, larger style family move-up residences. So hopefully that will slowly start to help, but at the same time, going into the next 2 years, I don't think you can go wrong. Like, I'm still buying real estate without hesitation, mainly because you need a roof over your head. I always say, like, with my 5 boys, I'm not going to pay for college for them, but I will get them each a condo. That way they don't have to come back in with me if they have any issues in life and they've got somewhere to go. With all of my love, of course. But really, I don't think that you can beat having a tangible asset anymore, and to be able to rent it out or to live in it, or look at what the state's doing with these ADU laws. And I mean, you're going to be able to sell your ADU separately of your residence when they're on the same parcel. That's incredible starting next year. So
that's news to me.
Yeah, so we'll see how that
That's why we bring in experts.
Yeah.
We'll see how that all works. I mean, it's going to be interesting to watch. Not a lot of ADUs in Santa Clarita anyways, but yeah.
So do you think there'll be a point? Okay, obviously inventory is extremely low because people, unless they have to move, they can't justify it. Mm-hmm. So as rates come down, obviously more buyers are going to be interested. Is there a point, you think, when rates are going to come down enough to where those buyers that have been sitting on their the sellers that have been sitting on their hands are going to say, okay, here's a sweet spot for me now, and then all of a sudden inventory jumps and we kind of have this increase in pricing based on a bunch of buyers, and then all of a sudden the sellers, and that's what I think is going to, prices are going to go up, and then they're going to settle in a little bit because we're going to have an inventory increase, and then maybe come down a little if enough people want to go. Is that...
That's the hope. I mean, in my ideal world, and I never thought 2 years ago I'd have said, what are you talking about? But give us 5.5% and leave us alone. Like, you will see the real estate market just hum right along and fix a whole lot of problems. I think that's a fair place to sit, and buyers can afford things, and it's not like you're paying, a $6,000 a month mortgage payment for a starter home. Because right now it's to a point where, due to the rates, and so beginning of this year, 2023, we were at 6.25%. We were at 8% last week. The median housing price still went up by $60K. How does that make sense? Your mortgage payment went up by literally almost $1,500 a month for the same house, but the prices still went up. So it's kind of wild. So it's hard for me to project too far in the future at this point, because there are so many variables. But moral of the story is there's a housing shortage, and I think COVID made real estate cool. We're like the millennials that were like, no, I'm going to travel the world and just stay in an apartment, I'm good. And once they got locked up in those apartments during COVID, they're like, it would be nice to have a pool. Yeah. Maybe I will buy my own place and have some space of my own. So I think we're going to be just fine real estate wise.
Okay.
Yeah.
But this is a perfect case study for supply and demand. I mean, it couldn't speak louder.
100%. We were hovering about 180 homes on the market solid for the last 2 years in all of Santa Clarita. We'd fluctuate by like 5 to 10, and now we're sitting at 303. If we get to 800 homes on the market, we will be in a true buyer's market, and you will likely see a good, like right now we're average days to sell 22, which is really fantastic considering how volatile things have been. But when we start to get into like 3 to 6 months on the market, that's where you start to see the real shift and the kind of desperation there too. So
do you see any possibility of a crash, whatever that means?
I don't, and I'll tell you why. I've never seen so much cash buyers, the down payments, the equity money that has been put into these homes. I was in the market when it crashed last time around. It was a very humbling time for realtors, especially young realtors that didn't know that could happen. Yeah.
They don't always go up.
Wait a minute. But I kind of saw that coming, where I would sit and sign loan docs with folks and say, this payment's going. This is negative amortization. You're not paying towards principal, and you're going in at 100% financing. So you've got no skin in the game. And if the property values fluctuate by 5%, which they did this last year thanks to the rates changing, well, now you're upside down, and people have to sell real estate no matter what the market's doing. You have death, divorce, lots of different situations, job relocations, yeah. For me, like, I love to see the values higher because I want people to have options. It breaks my heart to have somebody buy a house this year and then next year they call me and say, hey, I got my job transferred me out of state and now I'm upside down. I have to hold the house and I didn't really want to. So I don't think that we're going to see a crash, because even if we shifted another 20%, which would be really major, there's still people that have plenty of equity to move, and then we have all those homes that are owned outright.
Yeah, and I don't disagree. There's not going to be a big foreclosure problem, and yeah.
I don't think so. I mean, people are talking about some NOD numbers going up right now, but you have to understand, like, yes, we had the studio strikes, and thank goodness, that went on longer than it should have, but fortunately they're back, so that's really good.
Well, and in a notice of default, NOD just means they're behind on their mortgage.
They're up to,
but it doesn't mean they don't. It doesn't mean they don't have equity.
And they can still make good on it.
They can still pay it. They can still sell it.
Absolutely.
Nobody's going to say, well, I'm 4 months behind, and even though I have $400,000 in equity, I'm just going to let the house go.
100%.
Yep.
And the banks aren't stupid either.
Yeah.
So that's the other thing. I used to work in the REO department, which was like for bank foreclosures, and they would pick a couple favorite realtors in town and say, hey, we're going to give you all of our foreclosures. Well, now they either auction them or they keep them. So they're not going to flood their own market and drop their own values, kind of similar to like the new home builders. They're not going to drop their prices. When the market gets bad, they'll give rate buy downs, but they want to keep their property values strong for their other homeowners, which I respect. And the same thing with the large corps.
Bri, you talk about real estate, the landscape, in such a macro perspective with great intelligence.
Thank you.
At what point in your career did you realize, like, I'm going to become a master of this field?
My mom got me in the industry when I was young, and then she passed away, unfortunately, into pancreatic cancer when I was 21. And so that just put things into it puts your life into a different perspective, because you don't take anything for granted. And so watching that, and I mean, I was devastated and really kind of I was super motivated when I was young. I was like, I'm going to take over the world. And then after that, I was a little thrown off base for a couple of years, and then and then the market crashed, and that's very humbling when you have to go work at Costco to make ends meet. When you were, you go from making six figures one year to making a heck of a lot less, not being able to pay your bills. And it was like no fault of my own. I was still showing up to work, but just no one had equity. Nobody could move. And then the short sales were taking 6 months to literally a year to close. So there's no unemployment in real estate. It's just like, go figure it out. So I had to go, I worked at a title insurance company and lots of different things to make ends meet. And I was doing notaries. And, once my first son came into the world, it was like, okay, if you want to be commission only and you want to be around for your kid, there's really no excuse. Like, I have to make sure I constantly have things in the pipeline and I'm planting seeds for the future. And so I just put my heart into it 100%, and I've literally worked 7 days a week, like, ever since. I took 0 maternity leave. I was like docu-signing offers in labor and delivery. I don't recommend it. No. But when people, like, when they trust you enough when you're 9 months pregnant to, like, go into escrow with you, you're like, I'm not going to leave you. Trust me, I'm here. Yeah.
I've been in a networking meeting recently with Bri and her youngest son, who's how old?
Grant is 5 months.
Grant's 5 months, and he's being passed around by all the other realtors at the networking meeting. So when she says no maternity leave, she's not kidding.
No, he can come along. Or I have a wonderful assistant. I call her my second wife. She jumps in as needed. But yeah, we just make it work. And I tell the kids, like, if you want to go to Disneyland, you want to have a nice life, you've got to work first and play later. So yeah, you're coming with me to go show this house, and you will sit in the car and wait until I come back in. Yeah. And they do.
That's incredible. And how recently did you branch off and build your own brokerage? Because that was a major step as well.
It was huge, and it was something I really didn't want to do necessarily, but I just got to a point where the large corporations, real estate, we live in a very litigious state, as we know, and so my whole goal has been like, I don't want liability and all that stuff, but, I have some very close friends and my husband where I just said, I'm so big on branding, and I love my brand and my reputation, and I switched to a company, and then it just turned out to be very corporate. And I'm like, there's not a company that I would be like so excited and so proud of to be a part of. I love and respect all of them, but I was just like, I'm not like really juiced about anything. And so my husband's like, why don't you just start your own? Like, why did you become a broker 10 years ago? And I'm like, well, so I didn't have to work for anybody. And he's like, so let's do it. Okay, so he pushed me right off of my comfort zone. And so then it's like, okay, what are we going to name it? Okay, well, what about the construction? Like, because he owns a commercial construction company as well. So then I drug him back over to residential, so now he has 2 careers. So yeah, it's been pretty cool. But we have a really beautiful storefront over on Town Center Drive by Larson's.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
I
so
didn't know that.
where the old Valencia Wine Company used to be.
Okay. Yeah.
And so he did all the
There's still a few
build-out.
bottles in back.
Everybody asks. I'm like, no, I had to go buy my own. But Rebecca Rollins did the interior design, and then my husband did the build out. It was a full year of construction that we were working from home, which, now I'm like always at the office because I love it there. But we wanted to make a very approachable walk-in family vibe where it's like the whole family can come in, have coffee, sit down, talk about what our plan is. And there's no pressure. It's like, just tell me if this perfect situation happened, Bri, I would move. Okay, then you won't hear from me for probably 6 months. But when the right one comes, if it's right for you, then I will literally make miracles happen. And and if not, no big deal, on to the next one.
And so you told me your goal is not to be a big company, big office with a bunch of realtors. You don't want numbers, you want quality.
Yes.
You say that.
Yes.
Do you think that might change, or are you sticking to that 100%?
No, so we're a family-owned business. I have a wonderful team of ladies who I've slowly acquired over the years because they care. And that is, so many people jump into real estate thinking, oh, I can work for myself and it's easy money, and not understanding that, especially Santa Clarita, is such a small bubble. And if you don't do right by someone, you won't be around very long out here. And so I've worked so hard to make sure that people understand that we do care, and it's not about just the bottom line. Sometimes we do take a loss on things to make right, even if it was something we didn't do wrong. It's just, you know what, yeah, they took the kitchen sink when they left the house, and we're going to replace the kitchen sink for you because that was kind of crappy.
Don't tell me that actually happened.
Oh yeah.
What?
Yeah. And I'm like, do I call and say, can you please bring it back? Because it's not going back the way that it came out, right?
Totally.
So I'm like, we'll just get that done for you. And it's an unfortunate example, but yeah, crazy things happen, and I can't afford to fix everybody's mistakes, but we do try to make everyone have a great experience. So that's really where the vision is. So to answer your question with realtors, we have a minimum. So out of 16,000 realtors in the last year, only 24 have sold more than 10 transactions in the last year, which is
That's crazy.
Shocking to me.
24.
Only
24 out of 16,000 are making a living at it.
Not like 2,400.
No, 24
24
have sold more than 10 transactions in the last 12 months.
You're kidding me.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's like we really want to bring in some really quality folks that want to put deals together, and that we can give them that same kind of internal connection with, we can make to order this house for you however you want, and then we warranty it, for a year, and everybody's happy is the goal.
Wow.
So
you're almost turning a pre-existing home into a air quote new construction.
Kind of, yeah. That's kind of the vision. I like I said, I just like to sell pretty houses. Because
So I was just going to mention that one of the things I love is I follow, we're friends on social media, and every weekend if you look at Bri on Instagram or wherever, it'll say showing pretty houses, and it's kind of a neat way to just keep it fun and light, and
yeah, because
and
there
you do
are
that.
ugly ones. There are times I walk out and I'm like, I can't unsee.
But you'll
that
still
house.
say showing pretty houses.
Yeah, no, and then I was like, and it could be pretty houses, potential.
Yeah.
But it's so nice because I'm always like, oh, but you could do this and this, and some people can see it, some people can't. So to be able to just say, this is what we were thinking, what price do you think is fair? And then just throw it out there and see what works.
Whereas other real estate agents are applying filters on their photos, turning all the lights on. Let's do a really cool drone shot. I know it's oak everywhere, but let's do a cool drone shot.
Yeah,
Totally.
and right now, what you just said about 16,000 realtors and a small number of them only doing not even a huge number of deals, that kind of leads to desperation for a lot of them. And unfortunately, a lot of people that are seeking the help of a realtor, they're going to get whatever answers are necessary to get them to move that may not be correct. So I think now, if you're watching, if you're listening, more than ever, you need to make sure that whoever you're using is a qualified realtor who doesn't need your deal to make their car payment. And I feel bad for anybody that's struggling. Obviously, I'm not discounting people's struggles, but it's just really a tough time right now for a lot of people. You need to make sure that you're working with someone that's honest and has the integrity necessary to give you the advice that's real.
Yes, absolutely. And also to work with someone local to your area is so important too. I'm seeing a lot of people listing with folks from out of the area, and I love them, but when you put Santa Clarita for a city instead of Canyon Country, you're limiting the buyer search by probably 96%. So because they see us as Santa Clarita and our MLS does not recognize, it just started recognizing it, but the local agents don't search Santa Clarita, we're searching what is the true area. Wow. So there, for example, Saugus, Plum Canyon area, you can literally find 6 houses that nobody else is probably seeing on the market, and I'm watching them do price reductions, and it's because they're listed as the wrong neighborhood. And they just accidentally just didn't click the right box. And so I try to call the other realtors to let them know, just so it doesn't harm, all the neighborhood
harm your
comps.
prices, right?
Yeah, in the meantime. But it is important to know, like, your Melrose and your, school districts and all HOA, and is this HOA really invasive? Is this one not? Some of them are worse than others out here, and I know because I live in some of them. I've lived in some of them, and I've tried them out for you. So, just to be honest with those things, as opposed to saying, like, oh, no, you should be fine, and then all of a sudden they find out, like, oh,
yeah,
I live by the landfill and I didn't know it was there because it was in the fine print of the paperwork. We like to be transparent about those kind of things.
It's a big one, absolutely. Well, as we wrap up, this is the Advise First podcast. So I would love to know from Bri King, what would be your advice to those individuals who are 70 years old, they still have their home that they raise their kids in, or maybe you're talking to the child of that family. Mm-hmm. What would be your advice to them today?
I think it, like as if they were downsizing, or
as if they knew something needed to change with that family home. They just don't know the right immediate step.
I think the biggest point of suggestion, like obviously, like just give us a call, and every scenario is different. Like lately I've seen parents come in and say, you know what, instead of you guys selling your starter home to buy your next home, let us give you the down payment on that and put us on title to your starter home, and we'll rent it as a family-owned property now. So there are so many cool ideas that you can put together. And so I don't want to give you an exact answer, but definitely get the property in a trust. Definitely talk to Jerry about, and then your CPA, of course, about, the tax implications here and there. But, like you said, if you hand it over to the kids while you're still alive, now that inheritance tax just walked out the window, and that's just sad.
Yeah. And so many people do it.
Mm-hmm. And then, like we talked about, making sure that trust is formed properly. There's one story that I hate to say, but a couple that did a trust on LegalZoom and didn't open it, put it away in the safe, and then the husband passed away. They went and opened it, and they never signed and notarized it. They didn't think about it. Innocent enough, but catastrophic to the heirs.
Right.
Yeah. So that kind of stuff is important, and take into consideration the location. You can carry your tax base with you as well, which is huge. So lots of little things, but if you don't line that up during escrow, you could also lose that benefit as well. So you want to make sure you take care of these things.
So I'll say something. I've worked with realtors a lot over the years. My grandfather was a realtor, #1 realtor for Century 21 for a lot of years. I spent a little time in loans. I'm familiar with it. No realtors, been invited to speak to realtors, have realtors as clients. I have some realtors that reach out to me to get my perspective from the financial planning side. It's your business, but mine is related. I have many that couldn't care less. I was uninvited from a talk once. I don't know if you know this. I was invited to speak at a realtor group, and they said, what would you like to speak about? And this is right after the crash, and I said, well, I'd like to speak about making financial planning part of the real estate buying process so people actually don't get themselves in a situation, or they can exit in taxes, and really kind of incorporating the planning process into it. And the lady said to me, well, if you speak on that, I don't think anybody will want to listen, because that means they'll probably end up selling lower priced houses. She said, is there anything else you could speak about? And I said, well, if you don't want me there speaking about how to do the best job possible for your clients, then I don't want to speak to this group at all. Mm-hmm. So just the fact, Bri, that you've reached out to me and said, I would love to have you come in my office so I can talk about some of these things and understand them better so you can do a better job for your clients. There's a reason you're number 3. And I think it's not because you're a great salesperson or a great marketer or any of that, which you are. I think it's because you truly do care. You know your business, and you care about the people you're serving, and that just works. It just does. I try to train so many young people in business and say, just do the job right.
Yeah, just show up.
And it'll
is
work.
The first step, and then
show up
do
and
the
care.
right thing.
Show up and care.
Exactly.
So you are one of very, very few that I know of, and I've known many that have cared at all about what I could add to your business, which I think is important.
Thank you. And I trust your input because not only have you lived it yourself, but you also advise people. Obviously, you have for how many years have you been doing this now?
A lot.
A lot.
A lot.
So, and to
50,
have that.
60 years now?
Okay. Okay, kiddo. Get off my lawn.
Love it. Bri, where can our listeners find you, connect with you?
I'm on Facebook at just Bri King, and then BriKing.com. PrimeSCV is our .com is our website. So, and like I said, we're right there on Town Center Drive. Just come in and say hi, and we're always happy to talk about what's going on, and no charge for conversation.
or on any shopping cart on your local grocery store.
Yeah, if you want my direct cell phone number, just go to the grocery store and you can. I had some teens actually that were playing around, and they called me and they're like, "Oh my God, she really answered!" And I told them, "I'm like, have fun, you guys."
Yeah.
That's amazing.
That's funny.
I love it. Thank you for your time today, Bri. It was great to have you on the show.
Likewise, thank you for having me.
Thank you for
here.
your time, Robert, and hosting this, and Bri, thanks for coming.
My pleasure.
Yeah, we'll do more.
I'm looking forward to it.
Advisory services offered through Prosperitas Financial, an investment advisor registered with the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission. This material is not intended as an offer or solicitation for the purchase or sale of any security or other financial instrument. Past performance does not guarantee future performance. All the views expressed are those of Prosperitas Financial and do not offer tax or legal advice.